At 8,611 metres above sea level, K2 is the second highest mountain on Earth, following Mount Everest at 8,849 metres. Rising in the Karakoram range, K2 sits across the Gilgit-Baltistan region of Pakistan-administered Kashmir, and the China-administered Trans-Karakoram Tract within the Tax-Gorgan-Tajik Autonomous County of Xinjiang. The name Karakoram, derived from the Turkic language, translates to black gravel, and was initially used by Central Asian traders to refer to the Karakoram Pass, connecting India and China. Early European explorers such as William Moorcroft and George Hayward later extended the term to describe the mountain range west of the pass. However, they also used the term Muztar, meaning ice mountain, for the range recognised as the Karakoram. The Karakoram range originates in Afghanistan's Wakhan corridor in the west, spans across most of Gilgit-Baltistan and stretches into Indian-administered Ladakh and Chinese-controlled Aksai Chin. Ranking as the second highest mountain range globally, the Karakoram is interconnected with other mountain ranges including the Pamir Mountains, Hindu Kush and Himalayas. K2 earned the moniker Savage Mountain after American mountaineer George Bell, part of the 1953 American expedition, the fifth attempt on K2, described it to reporters as, quote, a savage mountain that tries to kill you. Among the 5 highest peaks globally, K2 holds the unfortunate distinction of being the deadliest, claiming roughly 1 life for every 4 climbers who reach its summit. Occasionally referred to as Mount Godwin Austen, K2 also goes by other nicknames such as the King of Mountains and the Mountaineer's Mountain. Additionally, it earned the title the Mountain of Mountains when prominent Italian climber Reinhold Messner named his book about K2 with the same phrase. While Everest boasts the highest summit, K2 presents a more challenging and perilous ascent, largely due to its northern location where adverse weather conditions are prevalent, which is why most climbers climb the peak during July and August, typically the warmest months of the year. The first successful summit of K2 was achieved by Italian climbers Lino Lacidelli and Achille Campagnoni as part of the 1954 Italian expedition led by Ardito Desio. As of February 2021, 377 individuals have reached K2's summit, yet the mountain has claimed the lives of 91 climbers during attempted ascents. Although K2 has been climbed via nearly all of its ridges, notably absent is an ascent from its eastern face, a challenge that remains unmet. But in light of all of this, if K2 is the world's second highest and arguably the most fearsome peak in the world, what is K1, the mountain that is assumed to come before it? The name K2 is derived from the notation used by the Great Trigonometrical Survey of British India, a meticulous survey carried out across the Indian subcontinent. It was initiated in 1802 by British military officer William Lambton under the direction of the East India Company. Upon his departure, British surveyor George Everest assumed leadership, serving as Surveyor General of India from 1830 to 1843, and subsequently the responsibility for the project transitioned to the Survey of India. Following Everest's departure, British surveyor Andrew Scott Waugh took charge, succeeded by British surveyor James Walker after 1861, who oversaw the project's completion in 1871. In 1856, British Royal Engineers Lieutenant and Surveyor Thomas Montgomery conducted the initial survey of the Karakoram mountain range from his station at Mount Haramuk in the Kashmir Valley, approximately 210 kilometers to the south. During this survey, he noted the 2 most prominent peaks he observed, designating them as K1 and their peak position behind it as K2. As most have likely guessed, the K in his designation stands for Karakoram. The Great Trigonometrical Survey adhered to a somewhat strict policy of utilising local names for mountains whenever feasible, and it was eventually discovered that K1 had a local name, Masherbrum. Masherbrum stands as the highest peak of the Masherbrum Mountains, a sub-range within the Karakoram range. Although Masherbrum is a prominent and imposing peak in its own right, it is somewhat overshadowed by the nearby towering peaks of the main Karakoram range, which include 4 of the 14 8,000ers, K2, Broad Peak, Gasherbrum 1 and Gasherbrum 2. However, K1 and K2 are not the only instances of mountains being labelled with a K designation. In fact, numerous mountains in the Karakoram range, although now recognised by local names, were initially surveyed and assigned K numbers, primarily by surveyor Thomas Montgomery. In the 1850s, Montgomery assigned the labels K1 through K6 to 6 prominent mountains visible from its observation point at Mount Haramuk. However, all but K2 underwent renaming over time, with K1 being named Masherbrum, K3 as Gasherbrum 4, K4 as Gasherbrum 2, K5 as Gasherbrum 1, and K6 as Baltistan Peak. Subsequently, many other mountains originally identified by their K numbers were also given new names. Yet, K2 went without a local name, perhaps owing to its extreme isolation. The mountain remains unseen from the nearby small Pakistani Tanavas Skull, situated along the route to the peak, and one of the highest settlements in the vicinity. Additionally, it is not visible from the nearest settlement to the north, and is only briefly visible from the end of Pakistan's Baltoro Glacier, a region seldom explored by local villagers. The name Chagori has been proposed as a local designation and originates from the Balti language, spoken by the Balti people, a Tibetic ethnic group indigenous to the Gilgit-Baltistan region. Chagori is formed by combining 2 Balti words, Chogo meaning big and Ri meaning mountain, although there is limited evidence of its widespread usage. It's possible that Chagori was a name coined by Western explorers or a spontaneous response to what's that called, because K2, well, is a big mountain. Nevertheless, it serves as the foundation for the Chinese name Chagir, which is the official name used by Chinese authorities for the peak. Alternative local names like Lamba Bahar, Urdu for Tall Mountain, and Dapsang have also been proposed, but they are not commonly used. Given the absence of a local name, the name Mount Godwin Austen was proposed, paying tribute to British surveyor Henry Godwin Austen, Allen, a pioneer explorer of the region. Although the Royal Geographical Society declined to adopt the name officially, it appeared on numerous maps and is still occasionally used today. Hence, the label K2 bestowed by surveyor Thomas Montgomery in 1856 persists as the widely recognised name for the mountain and is cemented by the fact that today, in the Balti language, it is called Ketu or Ketu. Italian climber Fosco Marini contended in his story of his ascent of Gasherbrum IV that while K2's name may have arisen by happenstance, its concise and detached quality is exceedingly fitting for a mountain so extremely isolated, alien and formidable. He concluded that it was just the bare bones of a name, all rock and ice in storm and abyss. It makes no attempt to sound human. It is atoms and stars. It has the nakedness of the world before the first man, or of the cindered planet after the last. This has been made Jack, and if you're climbing K2 right now, please leave a comment down below.